Welcome back to another episode of the Leading Yourself podcast. This week, as we are approaching that midpoint of the year, I want to walk you through something that I do every single year and that I actually just did a couple of days ago for myself. It's something that I always share with my community and people that I coach and I mentor, and that I found to be super helpful. And that is a mid-year check-in and reset. If you're someone who starts the year with a lot of motivation, goals, resolutions, and intentions, but somehow halfway through the year you've lost sight of them, or you're not where you thought you would be, this episode is for you. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Leading Yourself podcast. This is your host, Carolina de Arriba. I'm an HR professional, coach, wife, mom, and above all things, a goal-getter. In this podcast, we're going to be digging into all things leadership, professional and career development, habits, and relationships. This is a podcast for those who want to become the best version of themselves. Those who have big dreams and are willing to embrace the journey and put in the work to achieve them. My goal is to share with you the tools, tips, and tricks to help you in your journey. So let's dig into today's episode. These are the types of episodes that I get really excited about because I get to share with you a practice that has been life-changing for me and a lot of people who do it as well. And as I was saying in the intro, if you're someone who starts the year with lots of motivation and goals and resolutions and intentions, but somehow as the year goes by, you lose sight of them, you're not where you think you're supposed to be, even if you're making great progress, this can be a good opportunity to pause and ask yourself, are these still the right goals? Are they still aligned? Is my energy and time being invested in things that truly matter to me today? Now, let's be honest. 6 months into the year, you have evolved. Life happens, we change, and with that, our priorities may have shifted. And it's okay to pause and reassess and realign. So in this episode, I want to walk you through what I personally do as part of my mid-year check-in and reset. I'll break it down step by step. You don't need to follow my process exactly, but my hope is that inspires you to do your own version that can help you move forward with more intention in this second half of the year. Also, I've created a free workbook that you can go along with this episode. And if you haven't grabbed it yet, head to the link on the show notes of today's episode and download your copy. You can listen first and then come back with pen in hand or pause me as we go, whatever works best for you. Either way, it's your time. And I just want you to get the most out of this episode and this practice that I think can be really life-changing. So, first and foremost, let's pause and just acknowledge. Can you believe that we're entering the second half of the year already? This year is going by so fast. A lot has happened in the last 6 months, and I always like to take this time to reconnect with my goals and do a check-in with myself. It's a great opportunity to reflect on the decisions that you've made, how life is going, what have you been working on, and to be intentional about how you show up in the second half of the year. So I want to start from the very beginning. What is a reset and why do we need one? I want you to think about your phone or your computer. When it starts to run slowly, when your apps start to freeze, when things aren't loading quite right, what do? You don't toss it out. You don't assume it's broken beyond repair. You reset it. You give it a moment to pause, clear its system, and come back refreshed, often running smoother than before. And life, your goals, your career, your mindset, they're not any different. Sometimes we just need to pause to clear out the mental clutter, let go of what's no longer serving us, and realign with what matters most. Because the truth is, we're not meant to stay on autopilot forever. Life changes, we evolve, our circumstances shift, And with that, our priorities do too. But if we never stop to check in, if we just keep pushing and performing and producing, we can end up living a life that looks fine on the outside but feels misaligned on the inside. That's when burnout starts to creep in. That's when motivation disappears. That's when you wake up one day and ask, what am I even doing this for? So our reset, it's designed to interrupt that spiral. It helps us to clear out the glitches, the habits, the expectations, the pressures that no longer fit. It brings us back to clarity, to intention, to momentum that feels meaningful. Because here's the thing. You don't need to be fixed. You're not broken, but maybe, just maybe, you need a moment to reboot. And that moment starts with self-reflection and asking better questions. It starts with reconnecting to you. So why this mid-year reset? Because we need moments to reflect, to review, to refocus, not just reset for the sake of it, but to realign, restart if we need to, and most of all, refocus. We live in a fast, noisy world, and setting goals in January isn't always enough. As the months go by, motivation starts to fade, distractions pull us off course, and let me ask you this, and be honest with yourself. If I ask you right now what your goals for 2025 were, could you name them without looking? Many people can't. And even if you can, how much progress have you made? We get so focused on what's ahead that we rarely look back, not to dwell, but to acknowledge how far we've come. And that's why a check-in like this really matters. All right, before we dive into the actual reset, let's talk about mindset. To get the most out of this exercise, you need to get in the right headspace. So here are 5 quick tips that can help you get in that right headspace to do a mid-year reset. Tip number 1 is check in with yourself. Is now a good time? They might never be a perfect time, but are you mentally ready to reflect? Tip number 2, schedule it. Don't just think about it, put it on your calendar. In fact, right now, hit pause, and I want you to go to your calendar and block 2 hours. You're probably not going to need all of the 2 hours, but just block 2 hours on your calendar someday from now in the future that you can spend without any distractions to do this mid-year checking. Okay, you've done it. You're back. Let's go to tip number 3. Prep your space. Turn off your phone, maybe light a candle, put some music if that helps you get in the mood to do a mid-year checking. Make this whole thing an experience, more than just an exercise, a whole experience, something that you look forward to do. Tip number 4 is to clear your mind. And my best tip to do that, because we have a lot of noise in our minds as we go into this exercise, is to do a brain dump. What I mean is write out everything that is going on in your head, all the errands, all the reminders, all the tasks, that doctor's appointment that you need to make, that project that you need to finish, that thing that you need to grab at the grocery store. Put it all in a paper. Do a brain dump. Free up that mental space so you have that space to really go into this exercise and take the most out of it. And the last tip that I have for you is always start with gratitude. Before doing anything else, ask yourself, what am I grateful for in this first half of the year? Starting this exercise from a gratitude place is going to help you feel more grounded and look at this exercise with a complete different lens, a positive lens, an appreciation lens, and that can make a whole difference. So to summarize, before you start doing your annual check-in, you want to do 5 things. You want to check in with yourself. Is now a good time? Keeping in mind, this is not to make an excuse to procrastinate on doing this, right? Number 2, schedule it. Hopefully you have that one done. It's on your calendar. You block 2 hours. You prep your space, making sure you have no distractions and you have the whole experience, the vibe around this mid-year check-in. Number 4, clear your mind by doing a brain dump. And number 5, start with gratitude. Now, let's go into part 1 of this mid-year check-in. There's going to be 3 parts to it, and then I have a bonus at the end. So part 1 is about looking back. Before we can move forward, we need to pause, not to dwell, not to judge, but to acknowledge. Because so often we're sprinting through our days, our goals, our calendars, that we forget to pause and ask, what's working? What's worth celebrating? So let's start there. Let's begin this mid-year reboot by reflecting on the year so far and giving ourselves credit for all the things, all the living, all the learning, and the leading that we've done already. You've just lived through 6 full months of 2025. That's 6 months of decisions, changes, routines, relationships, emotions, challenges, and wins. It's easy to downplay it, to think, well, nothing big happened, or I didn't reach my goal yet. But here's what I want to remind you. You've done more than you think. You've grown more than you realize, and you deserve to pause and witness all of that. So I have a few exercises as part of this mid-year check-in. And again, you don't need to do them all. You can pick and choose what exercises work for you. Or maybe the exercises that I'm going to share with you are just an inspiration to create your own. Either way, let me walk you through some of the exercises that I recently do in my own mid-year check-in. The first exercise was celebrating your wins. And you can find this on your workbook. Again, if you haven't downloaded your workbook yet, you can find a link on the show notes of this podcast episode. So I want you to take a breath and think back over the past 6 months, January through June. Let the months play like a slideshow in your mind and ask yourself, what went well? What are you genuinely proud of? What did you do that required courage and consistency? What felt like a yes to yourself, even if no one else saw it? Maybe you built a new habit. Maybe you started therapy. Maybe you took a risk in your job, in your work. Maybe you had a powerful conversation with someone you care about. Maybe you protected your energy, or even you learned to rest without guilt. Those don't have to be headline moments, right? Small wins count too. Sometimes they count even more. Maybe you got better at saying no. Maybe you followed through on a commitment. Maybe you just kept going when things were tough. Write down at least 5 wins, but aim for 10 if you can. Okay? Now is the moment, if you want to do this alongside me, where you pause and you go to your workbook and you do the exercise. Now, let me remind you of this. You are allowed to be proud of yourself. In fact, that pride, that moment of I did that, becomes rocket fuel for what's next. Let's move on to exercise number 2. Exercise number 2, I call it your highlights. This one is a little bit different. It's less about achievements and it's more about aliveness. It's about asking to yourself, what are the moments that stood out in this first half of the year? What made you laugh and cry and connect or feel deeply? What made you feel present, like you are exactly where you needed to be? Maybe it was a slow morning with your kids, or a solo walk before you finally felt peace, or a spontaneous road trip, or a conversation that opened your heart. These moments, they're clues. Clues about what matters most to you, clues about where your joy lives, clues about how you want to feel more often. So look back and ask, who were you with? What were you doing? What did these moments have in common? Write them down and let them become like guideposts for the second half of your year. Again, here is, if you're doing this alongside me, you pause me, you go back to your workbook, and then you hit play again to go to exercise number 3, which now that we've celebrated our wins and look into the highlights of the year, we shift gears a bit to talk about friction. This exercise is about what's not working. And before we dive in, let me say this. This part isn't about blame or shame. It's about honesty. And honesty is one of the highest forms of self-respect. So take a deep breath and then ask yourself, where have I felt stuck in this first half of the year? What's draining me lately? What am I tolerating that no longer feels aligned? What parts of my life feel like I'm constantly forcing something that doesn't fit? It could be a habit that it's not serving you anymore, or a relationship that is out of sync, or a job rhythm that's wearing you down, or simply a pattern that you've outgrown. The goal here isn't to fix it all at once. It's just to name it. And then, this is important, you want to think of just 2 small shifts that you could make. Not an overhaul, not a reinvention, just 2 small changes that could ease that tension. Maybe it's adjusting your sleep schedule. Maybe is saying no to that thing that you keep saying yes to out of guilt. Maybe it's asking for help with something that's been heavy, or simply giving yourself permission to drop what no longer belongs in this season. You don't have to burn it all down to build something better. You just need to get clear so you can begin. This first part of the reboot is about this looking back. It's so important because it gives you roots. It grounds you in truth. It reminds you that your life is already full of strengths and wisdom. And now, after you pause and do this little exercise and come back, we're going to be ready to assess the present and imagine what's next. Are you ready? Are you ready to move on to part 2? Let's do it. Part 2 is about assessing the present. So we've looked back and celebrated your wins. You've acknowledged the highlights and faced what's not working. That's beautiful work. Now we're going to shift our focus from the past to the present, because before we start setting new goals or shifting direction, we need to ground ourselves in where we actually are today. So I'm going to share with you some exercises that help me do just this. The first exercise that I want to share with you is the life audit exercise. You can find this also on your workbooks. Again, you can download those through the link on the show notes of this podcast episode. I call it the life audit. This is where we use one of my favorite tools, which is the wheel of life. If you've done this with me before, you know it's super powerful. And if this is your first time, get ready, because this gives you a visual snapshot of your life today. Here's how it works. You'll see 8 life categories in that wheel of life: health, career, finances, fun and recreation, love or romantic relationship, family, personal growth, and friends and social life. Now, you can change the headlines of these categories. These are the ones that I use and I find super helpful because I think they cover all the spectrum of our life. And we want to be holistic in the way we look at our lives, not just narrow focus on one single area like your career or your finances, but we want to look at it holistically. Now, when you look at this wheel of life, the first thing that you're going to do is to take a deep breath, and then you're going to rate yourself in each of these areas from 1 to 10. And the scale here is not based on how successful it looks from the outside, but rather I want to rate yourself on how fulfilled you feel on the inside. This is super important. You're not grading yourself. You're simply checking in. A low score doesn't mean that you fail. It just means that that part of your life might need more love, more energy, or more attention right now. So after you rate yourself in each of these areas as it stands today, we're going to do a second part to this exercise, which is asking ourselves, where would I love to be in this area by the end of 2025? So for example, let's say that your health, you currently rate yourself at a 4. What would it like to be an 8? If your finances are at a 6, what does a 9 feel like? This is your chance to dream, not in vague wishes, but in intentional vision. Once you fill it out, you can draw the lines between the dots to form kind of a wheel. That's why it's called the wheel of life. between your current assessment and then where do you want to see yourself in each of those areas by the end of the year. Now, I have to say this. You want to set an ambitious goal, but also a realistic one. If your health is at a 4, how likely it is that you'll end at a 10 by the end of the year? Maybe you're thinking, I want to be a 9 or a 10 across the board. Let me ask you that. Is that even realistic? You want to set a realistic goal. And I would say a realistic goal in 6 months, based on my experience and having taught this tool to hundreds of people, is you want to increase by 1 or 2 points. Or maybe there are areas that you're exactly where you want to be and there's nothing needed there, right? Now, once you fill it out and you draw the lines between the dots to form your will, both on where you see yourself today as well as where you would love to see yourself by the end of the year, I want you to take a step back and look at the shape of your will. Is it mostly round and balanced, or does it look like a flat tire on one side? Where are the areas where you're thriving? And where are you feeling stretched thin or unfulfilled? This is such a powerful visual because life, like a wheel, rolls best when it's more evenly supported. If you've overinvested in one area while neglecting another, the ride gets bumpy emotionally, mentally, and even physically. This audit helps you identify where to focus in the second half of the year. Not out of guilt, but from clarity. Okay, let's move on to the next exercise. We're still in the present, and that exercise is our goal checking. It's time to revisit the goals that you set at the beginning of the year. So go ahead and pull them up. If you save them in your journal, on your phone, or wherever you track them, pull them over. I know at the beginning of the episode, I asked you, do you even remember what those goals are? You might need to go pull wherever it is that you write them down. And now I want you to ask yourself, what were your top 3 goals in January? How are you doing on them, truly? Like being fully honest. How are you doing against those top 3 goals? What progress have you made? Even if it wasn't linear, what small wins can you celebrate around these top 3 goals? And just as importantly, what didn't go as planned? Now, here's the key. Ask yourself not just how am I doing, but also, do they still feel aligned? Because sometimes we outgrow our goals, and that is not failure. That is evolution. You're not the same person you were in January. You've learned, you stretched yourself, maybe you pivoted, you faced things that you maybe didn't anticipate it. You've discovered what matters more and maybe what matters less. So take a moment and ask, what goals still feel exciting, anchored, purposeful? And which ones feel heavy and forced or rooted in old expectations? Is there anything on your list that you're still chasing, not because you want to chase it, but because you said you would? Because let me raise my hand there. How many times I've set goals at the beginning of the year, and throughout the year, things change. The goals are no longer aligned, but I keep pushing on them because I'm that kind of person that honors the commitments that I made to myself. And that is a great quality to have. But even more importantly, it's okay to release what no longer fits. In fact, it's powerful. So here's what I want you to jot down now. What goals still matter to you? What goals are you letting go of? And what's calling you forward now? You don't need to have it all figured out. This exercise is not about perfection. It's about honesty and permission to pivot, permission to reimagine, and to move forward differently. Now, you've done some incredible work already. You've reflected on where you've been, you've checked in with where you are right now, and now it's time to look forward and move on to part number 3 of this mid-year reboot, which is looking ahead. So I have an exercise that I want to share with you. It's super powerful, and I have to say that I love this one. I do this every year, sometimes even every quarter. It's such a powerful way to reconnect with possibility and with your own vision. So here's the scene. Imagine And you can even close your eyes as you're listening to me. Imagine that it's December 31st. You're sitting in your favorite coffee shop, maybe in a cozy corner with soft lining and your favorite drink on hand. Your best friend is sitting right across you. You're both relaxed and smiling and reflecting, kind of wrapping up the year. And your friend asks you, "How was your year?" What would you say? What are you proud of? What did you accomplish? What did you let go that made space for something better? What new things did you say yes to? What parts of your life feel lighter, more aligned, more like you? Let your imagination run free here and let it be rooted in truth. This isn't about pretending everything was perfect. It's about claiming the year you want to live. You get to choose the ending. You get to shape what this next chapter looks like. So I want you to write it in present tense as if it has already happened. I want you to write your vision for the end of the year as if you were actually sitting on December 31st of 2025 and you're reflecting on the year that is just ending. You might write things like, "This year, I finally started the podcast. This year, I slowed down and got present with my family. This year, I left a role that no longer aligned and opened myself up to something better. This year, I prioritized my health and I feel stronger than I felt in years." The more specific you are, the better, because that clarity becomes your compass moving forward into the second part of the year. Now, I have another exercise for you around the future, because let me tell you this, the life you want requires a version of you who lives it. Let me repeat that one more time. The life that you want requires a version of you who lives that life. So this is where we get real about identity. This is the exercise around identity. To live that vision that you just described in your coffee chat, you need to ask yourself the following question. Who do I need to become? We often focus so much on what we want to do, but this is about who we want to be. So complete this sentence. I am the type of person who, say it out loud, let it land, and then keep going. Create a list. It might look like, I am the type of person who honors her boundaries, who keeps her promises to herself, who shows up fully in her relationships, who makes decisions from intention and not obligation, who believes in her own voice and uses it. This isn't about perfection once again, it's about alignment. So some of these statements will already be true for you, others will be more aspirational. And that's the point. You're building the inner foundation that supports your outer goals. Okay, I have one more exercise for you in this future view, and that is an exercise about refreshing your routines, because identity without consistent support tends to fade. And goals without structure, they stay just in ideas. So I want you to ask these three things. Are your current routines supporting the version of you that you want to become? What's energizing you right now and what's exhausting you? And what small tweaks would make your days feel more aligned? Maybe your morning routine needs a reset. Maybe you're craving more quiet or more movement or more creativity. Maybe it's as simple as blocking 10 minutes in the morning for intention setting, or 30 minutes in the week for a reset walk, or building a weekly check-in ritual with yourself. Whatever it is, this isn't about overhauling your life. It's about building rhythms that support the person that you're becoming. Routines are so powerful. They either reinforce who you were or they reinforce who you're becoming. So what do you need to tweak, adjust, or reimagine in your current habits and routines that can support that future identity that you need to become in order to achieve your vision for the end of the year? Write everything that comes up on your workbook. Now, before we wrap up, there's one more exercise that I want to share with you. This is a bonus, and this is about choosing a book to read. Pick a book that supports the version of you that you're stepping into. Something that inspires growth and mindset shifts and confidence or clarity. Reading one book in the second half of the year can be incredibly grounding. Do you need ideas? I'm going to drop on the show notes of this podcast episode some for you, some of my favorite books. You can also DM me for more recommendations. Okay, you did it. You took the time to reflect, to realign, and to reignite what matters. This process, as I've already said, is not about perfection, it's about intention. You get to evolve, you get to shift, you get to choose again. I hope that you carry this momentum forward into the second half of the year with more clarity and more confidence. I hope that you found this helpful, that you found inspiration to create your own mid-year check-in and reboot ritual for yourself. If you found this episode helpful, do me a favor, send it to a friend. Maybe you get to reboot and do this exercise together. And don't forget to download the full workbook if you haven't yet, so you can spend that time doing this exercise for yourself, maybe with some friends. Until next time, keep leading yourself, because when you do, everything else flows. Okay, my friend, that's all I've got for you today. But before you go, 2 quick reminders. Number 1, if we're not already friends on Instagram, let's get connected. You can find me as Leading Yourself Podcast. Number 2, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am incredibly grateful that you're in this journey with me. I want to leave you with one last thought. I want to remind you that you're destined for more, and that every step that you take brings you closer to becoming that best version of yourself. Embrace each day as a chance to learn, grow, and chase your dreams. The world needs you to shine brightly, so go out and show up fully and authentically. Take care, and I'll see you next time.